So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees. It could be you and your family, forced from your home and your history.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
Hello, and welcome to Palestine Today. I'm Kathleen Wells, your host, and my co-host is British journalist Harry Fear, and we both welcome you to a program, Palestine Today, which is dedicated to news about Palestine. News about Palestine. Palestine Today brings you the unfiltered truth where you can get nowhere else in the mainstream media. That's right. And in our first segment, we will hear a pre-recorded interview that I conducted yesterday with Middle East expert Dr. Elaine Hagopian. It's a fabulous interview. You don't want to miss it. She's focused on Palestine and on Egypt, the turmoil that is taking place there right now. And in our second segment, we will speak live with Egyptian Hesham Haggag, who will be joining us live from Cairo. That's going to be fantastic. But first, I'd like to say hi to my co-host. Hi, Harry.
Hello. Nice to be back with you.
It's good to have you back.
How has the week been, Kathleen?
Oh, well, that's so sweet of you to ask. That's so... It's been hectic. I know that's probably a normal question, but I don't think anyone has ever asked me that question in probably a couple of... So I don't even know how to answer it. It's been a hectic week. It's been a very busy week. In fact, yesterday I pre-recorded an interview with Dr. Elaine Hagopian. I also did an interview regarding Syria, which I will have on my Wednesday show, the 21st, regarding Syria, and I'll also have Syrian, let me get his name right, Amir. I'll just say it because I can't think of it. Amir is his first name. He will also be on my interview on the 21st on Wednesday. So yesterday I pre-recorded this interview with Dr. Elaine Hagopian. She's a Middle East expert. For decades she has been focused on this area, and she's just fantastic. So that's what I did yesterday. It's pretty hectic driving to the radio station, but I love the work.
Good. Sounds great. Well, I'll definitely tune into the Syria interview because although we may have had a relatively quiet week or perhaps not, certainly the Middle East definitely hasn't, with what's happening with the negotiations between Israel and Palestine, what's happening in Egypt, and of course Syria and countless other stories. It's a massively volatile and massively significant situation.
Yes, it's massively volatile, the entire Middle East, and this is something that she discusses in both our interviews on Wednesday and the one that we're going to hear later on in a few minutes today. She focuses on the fact that this disruption is a bad thing. It's not a good thing, and it has implications for the entire region. She focuses on why it's happening, why it's taking place, its turmoil, and what ramifications it will have for the entire region. So it's a great interview.
Great. I'll tune in, and I urge everyone else to.
That sounds fantastic. So do you want to get started with the pre-recorded interview? Should we get started?
Let's do it.
Okay, let me say something first about Dr. Elaine Hagopian. She's a professor emerita of sociology at Simmons College in Boston. She was awarded 2 Fulbright Hays faculty research grants to do research in the Middle East, and she held appointments with UNICEF in the United Arab Emirates and with UNESCO throughout the Levant and Gulf to do a feasibility study for a Palestine Open University. She has traveled to and lived in Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, and Jordan for periods of time from 1971 onwards. Her publications focus on issues in Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria, as well as civil rights of Arabs and Muslims in America. So, Joe, can we put the interview on? Hi, this is Kathleen Wells, the host of Palestine Today, and this interview is being conducted with Dr. Elaine Hagopian for Palestine Today. Dr. Elaine Hagopian is Professor Emeritus of Sociology at Simmons College in Boston. She was awarded 2 Fulbright Hays faculty research grants to do research in the Middle East, held appointments with UNICEF in the United Arab Emirates, and with UNESCO throughout the Levant and Gulf to do feasibility study for Palestine Open University University. Dr. Hagopian has traveled to and lived in Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, and Jordan for a period of times from 1971 onwards. Her publications focus on issues in Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria, as well as civil rights of Arabs and Muslims in America. Dr. Hagopian, thank you for joining Palestine today.
Thank you.
Well, Thursday, my first question is to you that, Thursday President Obama scrapped plans for a joint American-Egyptian military exercises, which is the first concrete U.S. reaction to the sprawling violence in and around Cairo. So, tell us, what is going on in Egypt?
Well, first of all, I think we need a little bit of a context. When the Muslim Brothers won the elections and Morsi became the president, the U.S. went along with that. Of course, it was a democratic election, even though the voting was not terrific. I mean, it was split, but they won the majority, and he was elected president. Now, Morsi initially talked about wanting to change the Camp David peace treaty with Israel, and the U.S. immediately reacted to that, and then he immediately talked about his warm friends in Israel and that nothing would change, there would be no amendments, and he was also looking for a huge loan from the IMF, $4.7 billion, I believe, and there was a lot of discussion about that. But he also was trying to position Egypt again for its traditional role of leader in the region. And he came out in support of the rebels in Syria, who were predominantly Muslim brothers, and against Assad. But he then also warmed up, as best he could, to Iran. He invited Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey to come to Egypt to discuss Syria. That actually didn't work out, but they were beginning to be exchanges with Iran, even though Iran supports the Assad regime. So he was beginning to take some actions that the U.S. And Israel began to see as threatening, especially in relationship with Iran. Never mind the fact that internally the way he governed was not always pleasing to the Egyptian people. Therefore, this coup that occurred, and it is a coup, it's a military coup, the army took over and put him out, an elected president.
And that characterization of it being a coup has legal consequences.
Yes,
in fact, Obama, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, please.
Well, I was going to say Obama has refused to call it a military coup because that would entail the legal significance would be that the United States could no longer send the $1.3 billion.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that El-Baradei, who agreed to be vice president in the so-called temporary government that the army set up, had convinced the U.S. That the Army's action was correct to do. My own sense, and I have no way of proving this, is that the U.S. gave the green light on this, and because they became concerned about Morsi's actions in the region. And they believed, the Army, because Baradei convinced them, that the Army would put out a roadmap to a democratic society, that they would have elections, that they would have a new constitution that would eliminate some of what they felt was too much of an Islamic slant. And so the U.S. went along with it and didn't call it a coup until the Army began to show that it was going to, again, put down the Muslim Brothers. They have for more than 80 years been put down and put out of political life and so forth and so on. And the Army didn't like the fact that the Muslim Brothers were governing, and that the Israelis were also concerned because many of the radical Muslims were in the Sinai, and they were on the Israeli border and causing some problems there. And so there was this concern, especially where Morsi came out and supported the Muslim Brothers in Syria. So the army took over, and what they're doing seems to be one not of a roadmap to democracy, but they are crushing the Muslim Brothers and killing large numbers. And the U.S. can't just sit by and say, don't do this. So they had to take some action. But Obama's options are limited, and he has not yet wanted to cease the money to the Army, because the Army has been the mainstay of the relationship with Israel. And the safety, so-called safety of Israel, though it's one of the strongest nations, but the safety of Israel and making sure that nothing undermines it has been very important. So the administration wants to keep a finger in the pie and not alienate the Army. As you know, it was the last week or a short while ago, Kerry made a stupid statement in which he said, well, the Army, the Egyptian Army, is really supporting democracy. Mm-hmm. And I think this was part of the whole idea that the Army was really going to follow this so-called roadmap that they put out. And now he's there with pie on his face because they are just rampaging. And they have closed the border with Gaza. Mm-hmm. And they, even under Morsi, they had tried to destroy some of the tunnels at the West Colony. Now they're really trying to close them down. And
this is having a very debilitating effect on the people in Gaza, this border closure.
And there are two things, one or two things I'd like to point out about those tunnels. One, they were a lifeline. You could even drive a car through some of them. Everything flowed through those tunnels. And what happened, of course, is that there's a big black market in Gaza, and that prices would go up for staples, especially when Israel wasn't allowing much to go in from Israel. Everything that goes into Gaza comes through Israel. So the Gaza was a kind of lifeline, though the prices were very high. Now, when Morsi came in, the Palestinians, the Hamas group, basically thought they were going to get a kind of free and fair trade agreement trafficking through Gaza and Egypt. That's what they wanted, and it's important because the tunnels, so long as they exist and people are making money, big money, those people who make big money are going to not want to see any kind of development in Gaza that would negate the need for the tunnels because they make a lot of money. Mm. So it's a two-edged sword. Mm-hmm. But still, at the same time, since there is no real development going on in Gaza, the tunnels were very important. Now they're sealed off. There is no trade agreement, and the Israelis, interestingly enough, have not exactly loosened up with regard to Gaza, but they're allowing certain things to get into Gaza, and I think it's almost a way of, and I think the U.S. is involved in this, of trying to placate some of the Gazans because they now are again very dependent on Israel as a kind of way of tamping them down and not wanting to join some of the more radical Islamic elements in the Sinai on the Israeli border. That's my, sort of quick look at that.
Well, you're an expert in this area. So what do you foresee happening with the peace talks, for one, and with the Palestinians? What do you foresee for the future?
Well, I'll tell you what I think the U.S. thinks it wants to do, and that the Palestinians under Abbas really they don't have any leverage. They're negotiating from weakness, and they're negotiating because they're pushed to the table by the U.S. Even Abbas is saying he doesn't expect anything, but he still always goes to negotiations. He thinks that's the only road because they can't defeat Israel any other way. And so they go to the table. Now, Palestinians, of course, are fractured. Hamas and Fatah, which are the two dominant political movements, have not agreed to unify in one Palestinian position. The Palestinian Authority is very dependent on U.S. aid. That's what gives the U.S. a lot of leverage. That aid pays most of the employees of the authority, and they employ a lot of the people, especially when you have no real development going on in the Palestinian territories occupied in '67 and being eaten up by the settlements. So settlements are continuing to go on. Now, here's what I think the U.S. wants, and Israel has a little different take on this, but the U.S. would want is to have some sort of a non-solution and call it a solution. That is, they know that they cannot hold Israel to any real solution that would make the Palestinians feel that they have gotten something.
Why can't the U.S. hold Israel to that?
Because it won't. Number one, if you follow one school of thought, it's because they have such a big lobby in the U.S. If you follow and very effective and supply a lot of money to Congress, and they practically own Congress. If you follow another line of thought, and particularly from Noam Chomsky and others, then the Israel is seen as being in the interest of the U.S., even as it is a pain in the neck, because it's highly technological. A lot of our software comes from there, and the Israelis are happy because it gives them great access to a lot of information in the U.S. by having their software used here. And it's where the U.S. can count on a very mobile and effective military force if it needs it. It's part of a what used to be a pincer, where you had Israel and the Shah's Iran sort of supporting the U.S. Now they don't have that, so the thinking is that Israel is not less important; it's more important. So take your pick. They're probably a little bit of both, but the lobby is very effective. But when Reagan wanted to do something that the lobby didn't want him to do, namely give radar planes to Saudi Arabia, even though the U.S. was operating them, the lobby did not win. And that was seen as being within American interests in the Gulf. So take your pick.
Well, my pick is that Israel is not does not share strategic interest, but it is actually a liability.
Well, it's a huge liability.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a huge liability. But what I'm saying here is there are those who see, and there may be those in government who see it as important because of its Western development. And that, as has been pointed out by numerous observers, is not really accurate, because it causes us so much problems with the Middle Eastern countries, and that we cannot seem to negotiate anything for stability so long as Israel's there. They've tried they thought that if they defeated Baghdad, that the route to forcing the Palestinians to accept less than a state would be assured. Now, why is this? Because Israel, from the very beginning, saw three Arab countries, Arab nationalist countries, that would threaten its long-term existence.
Which three are those?
Those three are Egypt, Syria, and Iraq.
Okay, we're going to take a break right now. We were listening to Dr. Elaine Hagopian, who is a Middle East expert analyst, and we were discussing Palestine and Egypt. We'll be right back after this break.
More than 6 million refugees, it could be you and your family, forced from your home and your
PDM Web Solutions is the place to go for all of your web design and online marketing needs. And we're located right by you in Riverside. At PDM Web Solutions, we build websites with an emphasis on business marketing, upgradability, and easy editing that grow with your business and won't leave you boxed in. And now we're offering an extra special. Mention the Kathleen Wells Show or Palestine Today when you come to PDM Web Solutions, and we'll give you a 10% discount. That's right, a 10% discount. Check out our website at pdmwebsolutions.com or give us a call at area code 951-543-7608. You can check out Kathleen's website to see our work, too. That's PDM Web Solutions at area code 951-543-7608. Also, like us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/PDM Web Solutions. Reliable, fast, and creative. That's PDM Web Solutions.
Hi, this is Kathleen Wells, host of Palestine Today, which airs every Saturday at 11 a.m. right here on KCAA. And guess what? My co-host, Harry Fair, and I bring you the unfiltered truth. That's right, the unfiltered truth regarding Israel and Palestine every Saturday. You will hear from Palestinians directly. You will get their perspective and point of view directly right here on Palestine Today. However, to keep the show on the air, we need you. We need you to help us make this happen. So please consider making a donation so that Palestine Today can stay on the air. Go to my website, thekathleenwellsshow.com, click on the PayPal button, and all donations go directly to the production cost of keeping Palestine Today on air. No longer do you have to rely on the mainstream media spin about this region. No longer do you have to wonder, why is U.S. policy partial or slanted towards the Israel perspective? And no longer will you sit perplexed, wondering why U.S. soldiers are consistently deployed to this region. Harry and I are here to bring you the news that you will get nowhere else in the mainstream media. Palestine Today. We need you to keep the show on the air. Donate at thekathleenwellsshow.com.
Donate right now at thekathleenwellsshow.com. That's thekathleenwellsshow.com. Donate to Palestine Today. Click on PayPal. Donate right now at thekathleenwellsshow.com. Are you fascinated by the Middle East, but worried that U.S. foreign policy may lead yet to another war? Do you care about civil rights? For the past 30 years, the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs has brought its readers the real news, minus the corporate media spin. Read about Palestinians trying to survive the world's largest occupation. Learn how your hard-earned tax dollars fund that illegal occupation. Find out how much your members of Congress has received from pro-Israel PACs, and much, much more. Visit the Washington Report's website, www.wrmea.org, or call 888-881-5861 to request a free sample copy. Better yet, subscribe. It's only $29 for 9 issues. Mention Palestine Today and get a bonus gift.
A penny for your thoughts? Sorry, ideas are priceless. AM 1050, KCAA.
So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees, it could be you and your family, forced from your home and your history.
Welcome back to Palestine Today. We are listening to an interview that I conducted yesterday, a pre-recorded interview with Dr. Elaine Hagopian, a Middle East analyst and expert, and she's discussing Egypt and Palestine. So let's continue.
Now, Egypt was taken out of the equation by the Camp David. Sadat signed it, and it removed it from the equation. Iraq was just about destroyed, though it has a very active, as we know, Islamic movement within it. And it's not quite out of the equation, but in essence it was destroyed. And Syria was the thorn, especially since they've now added Iran, a non-Arab country after the Shah fell, as an enemy. So they see all these countries as threats. So Syria and Iran, and of course the offshoot Hezbollah, are seen as threats to Israel. And this is the reason that Israel lobbied to Congress to shut up about dropping the aid to the Egyptian military. They want that money to go to the Egyptian military. It keeps the area stable. They think it keeps the border stable on the Israeli side.
Yeah, and I heard this morning that if the United States decides to no longer give Egypt the billions, 1.3 billion, Egypt will just get it elsewhere, Russia or Saudi Arabia or China.
If they decide not to give it, they can probably get it elsewhere, and there would be some cost to that. I mean, the Arab countries, especially Saudi Arabia, is thrilled that the military took over, and oddly enough, the Syrian Assad is thrilled. Why? Not because he likes the army, but because they defeated the Muslim Brothers, and he claims that he is fighting the Muslim Brothers, who are really wanting to spread and that they're terrorists and that they will change society and make it more restrictive.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very funny kind of setup where here you have Assad in his media outlets, saying that the Brotherhood is defeated and that Syria is fighting them in Syria. So they, in a sense, he's almost identifying with the military in Egypt, which is, really abominable.
Well, it's a complete it's confusing. I'll put it that way. It's confusing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So one of the things you said is that Israel saw three countries as threats or a problem.
Right from the beginning, right from 1948, yeah.
Right from 1948. Egypt, Iraq, and Syria. And so now Egypt is having a civil war.
Egypt was taken out first by the Camp David.
Oh, right. Egypt, exactly.
And now they're having a civil war. Well, not a civil war. They haven't yet.
Not yet.
But and that's worrying Israel because they want the army to succeed rather than the Muslim Brothers.
Uh-huh.
Not in their interest to have the Muslim Brothers succeed because they basically are hostile to Israel.
Well, I'm glad you said that. You've clarified that Israel wants to see the military succeed.
Yes, they have lobbied to keep that money going in there because if the army gets money from elsewhere, it has to pay a different price. This way, with U.S. money, it stays very pro-West.
Uh-huh. Well, that makes it really clear. I'm glad you clarified that. And also in the interview I had with you earlier, you were saying that Syria is on the tipping point of being sort of segmented into parts, into pieces, like Iraq is now.
Yeah. So
this will all be what will be the results of all of this? I mean, it just seems I can't keep it straight. So can you sort of what is the black and white of the issue? Can you break it down that easy?
Let me try to put this down because I will have to go shortly. What you're seeing now happening in Egypt and what you see in terms of the opposition in Syria, this is all part of a counter-revolutionary movement because the U.S. and Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf states and Israel, they are concerned that what started out as an Arab Spring and quickly became Islamic-dominated, whether in Tunisia, and even though in Libya they elected a secular person, the militias that really are the power are very Islamic and radical, and they're wreaking havoc not only in the Middle East but in Mali with their arms. They sell arms to some of the forces on the Algerian Mali-Libya border. So this in a sense, it's a counter-revolution. the election in Egypt was democratic. It was making the president strong, Morsi, and he was taking action to relate and try to play a regional role that the U.S. and Israel did not want him to play. And so this military coup, which was supposed to be a mild coup leading to new elections and a new constitution, has turned into a bloodbath. And in Syria, what is happening is the original authentic democratic movement in Syria, which is not even mentioned anymore. I mean, there is a group called the Syrian Coordination. It's called National Coordination Committee for Democratic Change. Does not believe in having outside intervention. Doesn't want the U.S. or anybody else in there. Is not even mentioned. So you first start a kind of destabilization in Syria, and you push aside the authentic movement, and then it gets out of hand so that it becomes a problem to you. In other words, they were against some of the kinds of things that were happening democratically, and they want to control Syria, and so now they're trying to get the Geneva Conference to use it as a way of somehow managing Syria better, even with an Assad in power. So that's basically the confusion comes from the fact that in each country you have a different situation. One last thing I have to point out, and I really do have to run, is that way back when, before these countries got the independence from the colonial powers, especially in the 19th, in the 20th, rather in the early 20th century, or late 19th, early 20th century, and well into the 50s, there was a debate in the Arab world, especially centered in Egypt, but not necessarily only there. There were Syrian intellectuals that came in as part of that debate into Egypt and so forth about the role of Islam. After all, Islam is the primary identity of the people, not just simply as a religion, and it's not necessarily a fanatic religion for the majority of the people, but it is an identity. And and so the debate was how much of modernity and Western ways, and how much of the Islamic and can we have an Islamic society with a modern government that negates the notion of an ummah, which is the larger Islamic nation, united. And this debate was nipped in the bud by the Nasser revolution that brought in a secular military government. And Nasser immediately suppressed these people, and lots of them were killed after they were used. When Sadat came in, he released a number of the Muslim Brothers from prison, not because he loved them, but because he thought they would be able to sort of weaken any leftover Nasserites, because he was about to make an agreement with Israel, which Nasser and the Muslim Brothers had not agreed to, but if they were fighting each other for power. Now, the Muslim Brothers were never allowed to have really a political life, though they ran in other parties and did get seats in the parliament. So this debate seems, because it wasn't finished and because these countries did not go through the kind of evolution that Europe went through to get to a nation state, but were chopped up by the colonial powers, this debate caused a great deal of frustration when it was suppressed. And then the people who are Muslim Brothers were suppressed, both in Egypt and in Syria. It has erupted again, but it erupted. It was part of Tunisia. It was part of Libya. It even exists in Morocco. And so you have these large groups, some of them more radical than others, still trying to think about an Islamic society, and the debate is not as rich as it once was about the role of women and this and that, but it hasn't had time to actually evolve and become a fruitful production. Instead, it has become political movements, and you have suppression going on, and those who like the movements support them, and those who don't like the movements, like external powers, try to repress them, and then they try to use them as they used them in Afghanistan, and then abandoned them, and then they came back in the name of bin Laden and bit us. So I think the West doesn't think far ahead enough, and when they suppressed the Islamic movement initially, and then they had to fight the secular movements, the Arab nationalists, Egypt, and in Syria they had a coup in 49, and in Iraq there were many coups and many attempts on Iraq to support Israel, and these all in a sense killed off the secular movement. And as we get into this phase, what's left that's organized was the Muslim movement. So we have a real mess. We have a real mess. And let me just ask you one last question. What future do you foresee for the Palestinian people? The Palestinian people, if they can hang on, at some point, I'm not predicting that they're ever going to have a real state. But if they can hang on and they can figure out how to pressure for civil rights within the 48 Palestine, which includes what became Israel, the point is that they can try to become a one state with equal rights for people. This is what leading Palestinians now think, that they have to focus on getting their civil rights within this larger system. They would like to see the Palestinian Authority go out of business because it has really handicapped them. The problem is a long haul because there is no connection to the Gaza and Hamas and doesn't agree with what's going on in the West Bank, and so it has been fragmented. There has to be a new young leadership that can be patient and work on trying to knit these groups together. The real problem is the fact that they are now so constricted into small pockets that they can't even communicate well with each other. And if they do it by technology, they're picked up immediately because you know well it's easy to have surveillance. So I just see a long haul. The goal of the Israelis are that whatever Palestinians remain, that they would somehow disperse, get sick of it, and that they would forget about Palestine and it would just be Israel, period. I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't think that you're going to see any immediate solution to the Palestinian question that makes any sense for their full rights.
Okay, well, no immediate solution. Thank you, Dr. Hagopian, for taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees. It could be you and your family, forced from your home and your...
PDM Web Solutions is the place to go for all of your web design and online marketing needs. And we're located right by you in Riverside. At PDM Web Solutions, we build websites with an emphasis on business marketing, upgradability, and easy editing that grow with your business and won't leave you boxed in. And now we're offering an extra special. Mention the Kathleen Wells Show or Palestine Today when you come to PDM Web Solutions, and we'll give you a 10% discount. That's right, a 10% discount. Check out our website at pdmwebsolutions.com or give us a call at area code 951-543-7608. You can check out Kathleen's website to see our work, too. That's PDM Web Solutions at area code 951-543-7608. Also, like us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/PDM Web Solutions. Reliable, fast, and creative. That's PDM Web Solutions.
Hi, this is Kathleen Wells, host of Palestine Today, which airs every Saturday at 11 a.m. right here on KCAA. And guess what? My co-host, Harry Fair, and I bring you the unfiltered truth. That's right, the unfiltered truth regarding Israel and Palestine every Saturday. You will hear from Palestinians directly. You will get their perspective and point of view directly right here on Palestine Today. However, to keep the show on the air, we need you. We need you to help us make this happen. So please consider making a donation so that Palestine Today can stay on the air. Go to my website, thekathleenwellsshow.com, click on the PayPal button, and all donations go directly to the production cost of keeping Palestine Today on air. No longer do you have to rely on the mainstream media spin about this region. No longer do you have to wonder, why is U.S. policy partial or slanted towards the Israel perspective? And no longer will you sit perplexed, wondering why U.S. soldiers are consistently deployed to this region. Harry and I are here to bring you the news that you will get nowhere else in the mainstream media. Palestine Today. We need you to keep the show on the air. Donate at thekathleenwellsshow.com.
Donate right now at thekathleenwellsshow.com. That's thekathleenwellsshow.com. Donate to Palestine Today. Click on PayPal. Donate right now at thekathleenwellsshow.com.
If the truth hurts, then AM 1050 KCAA can be a real pain.
So many years.
Welcome back. I want to get straight to the next segment. Our next segment is with Hesham Haggag, who is an Egyptian from Luxor. We all know what's going on in Egypt right now. So, in fact, let me give you a little information about Hesham. Hesham Haggag, was the CEO of Tech Int, a major pipeline construction company where he was involved with 60% of the major pipeline around the world. Some of the countries where Tech Int contributed pipelines were Russia, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela, just to name a few. And currently, Mr. Haggag has worked for the last 5 years in charge of a project that he devised to build affordable homes in Egypt. He's also politically active, and he loves Egypt. So, Mr. Haggag, thank you for joining us on Palestine Today.
Thank you. Thank you, my dear. How are you?
I'm very good. Well, let me toss this over to Harry, and you guys can go from there.
Yes, sure.
It's great to have you on the show. I wanted to begin this final segment. Could you just explain to people what the hell is going on in Egypt?
It's a big mess, I know. It's simple, really. Since the 25th of January revolution that ousted the later President Hosni Mubarak, there was a big show of the Islamist groups in Egypt taking over the society, which is in Egypt, it doesn't go that way. There is, as you might have heard people talking about it, that the Egyptians are religious by nature in some sort of a way, either Christians or Muslims, but not that far. The problem with the Islamists in Egypt, either the Muslim Brotherhood or the Islamist groups like Qaeda or whatever you name them, are too far to the right from the Egyptians. And they were sort of forcing their views on the Egyptians, forcing their presence on the Egyptians, which we didn't take lightly. There was a lot of uprising against them. There was sort of trying to avoid their heavy hand on the society, trying to turn us that way or the other way in the direction of the global Islamic rule sort of thing. I don't know how to explain it in English, but put
Indeed.
Egypt.
I wanted to jump in, Hesham, and just play devil's advocate. I spent a few weeks in Egypt recently talking to dozens, hundreds even of Egyptians. The thing which I find interesting is, indeed, perhaps many people will be against the direction that the Muslim Brotherhood set for the country, but were they not elected? And is it or is it not true that those that practically went out to the street and called for the ousting of Morsi, they did not constitute the majority of Egyptians? What do you say to those ideas?
No, as a matter of fact, yes, I won't deny it. It's out of the question now. The Muslim Brotherhood were elected. 51% of the votes got to them. But, like I say again, they failed to unite the Egyptians. They failed to make all the Egyptians into their favor. In 1 year of their rule in Egypt, it was quite obvious that they are taking us downhill from there on. The Egyptians are very sensitive about Egypt. And they were not seeing Egypt as a whole country. They were seeing Egypt as part of their global view of their Islamic rule. And the Egyptians just couldn't take it. That's the point. That's the main point. No argument about that. They were elected, but they failed to make the Egyptians see their point of view. So that's why the Egyptians approached against them. And the majority of the Egyptians are against the Muslim Brotherhood.
I want to ask you, Hesham, before Kathleen brings on our other speaker in this final segment, how do you expect things to progress in the coming days? I mean, it can't be expectable that the supporters of Morsi or supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood will back down in the face of what some call a massacre yesterday, or rather the day before yesterday. What do you think is going to transpire in regard to the dynamic between the supporters of Morsi and the Egyptian army?
Very good. Thank you for asking me that, because it's a very crucial thing to understand that the Muslim Brotherhood was an illegal organization. I mean, in the sense of they are not within the scope of working the Egyptian government or the Egyptian country. And legalizing that their operation will put them within the system. We have no idea of their finances or where they spend their money or where they get it from, and who's running the group or what their aims are. If they want to continue with the work or stay in the scope of political work in Egypt, they will have to legalize their work, and they'll have to come to the open, and their books has to be shown to the public, and we should know what's going on. And if they do that, they are welcome to continue with the political movement in Egypt as normal as anybody else. Otherwise, they will be illegalized. I mean, they will be prosecuted as a terrorist group, or they will be banned from working within the political group of Egypt. That's as simple as that. We cannot accept a group to be working outside the system. You won't have it in the States. We won't have it in Egypt. Just as simple as that.
Okay, well, you know what? Now I would like to bring on, we only have a few more minutes left. I wanted to bring on Nima Azal, who is calling in from Berlin, and he had some thoughts about what has taken place in Egypt. Hi, Nima. Do you want to?
Hi, Kathleen.
Hi. You want to? I want to have you back on. In fact, I want to have Hesham back on also. But in these last few minutes, do you want to give us your thoughts about what has taken place in Egypt?
Yeah, I fully agree with Mr. Amin. I think he's fundamentally correct. about the situation and the sentiment in Egypt. Also, let us not forget that the elections in Egypt of 2012 last year, the Muslim Brotherhood organization under Morsi won a plurality of votes. They didn't really win by much. I mean, Ahmad Shafiq was only behind by less than 1 million votes. And the Muslim Brotherhood managed to organize themselves, and that's why they took the election. Just let us not forget they went to second round. The thing I'd like to respond to was your previous guest who said something to the effect that Morsi was trying to implement policies in Egypt that were against the geopolitical interests of Israel. I think that is wrong, and the evidence for that is quite compelling, beginning with Morsi's shutting down of the tunnels between Gaza and Sinai as one of the first acts that he implemented when he took the presidency. This is something that Mubarak never did. It was something that the interim government between Mubarak and Morsi never did. But this was one of the very first acts of the Morsi government. The Muslim Brotherhood has a very long, tortuous, and checkered history in the Middle East. There are many people who, with good evidence, believe that the Muslim Brotherhood has always been a Trojan horse of Anglo-American imperialism in the region. Its genesis in the late 19th century was quite questionable with individuals such as Sayyid Jamal al-Din Afghani and Sayyid Qutb and Hassan al-Banna. And, to this day, there are question marks lingering over the real connections and linkages and loyalties of these people. And you can see this also in the way that Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood behaved. I think effectively the discussion that tries to make this a simplistic argument about the Egyptian military that acted on behalf of the 17 million people who were in Tahrir Square a few days before the fall of Morsi are on the side of the United States, and Morsi was against the Zionist American axis in the Middle East. I think this is a very simplistic way of looking at the whole situation about what's happening.
Indeed.
Very, very simplistic.
This is probably to an extent reflecting the fact that the Western mainstream media doesn't really understand the situation because it hasn't really paid any attention in a way that
I wouldn't say even that. It's not even a matter of understanding. I think the Western corporate media has a set of interests that they're trying to implement and trying to rally consensus in their own societies to certain ends for those agendas. And so they have to spin it, in a certain way to the public, whether in the United States or in Europe or Australasia or what have you, in order to be able to sell the geopolitical agenda. Otherwise, it doesn't work. I don't see any tangible evidence where you can come out and say that SCAF and the current head of the Egyptian military, al-Sisi, are on the payroll of Washington. I think the issues are a lot more complicated than that. I mean, you can also make the equal argument that al-Sisi is maybe a neo-Nasserist that has taken power. Hello?
Oh, I hear everything you're saying. We all hear everything you're saying. You're fantastic, Nima, actually. We're going to have you. We only have 45 seconds left, and so we're going to have you back on soon because I love what you're saying. We're going to have Hesham back on also, and naturally Harry's going to be with me every Saturday.
Kathleen, it looks like we need a 2-hour show next week.
There you guys.
And this is why
I agree, by the way, with every word he says.
Well, this is a good
every word. It's quite complicated for the Western media to understand or to grasp the idea of what's going on in the area in general.
Okay, we've got 7 seconds. We've got 6 seconds. I love you both. We're going to be back on. We'll do it again. Thank you for joining us on Palestine Today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 a.m., the station that leaves no listener behind.
From the KCAA Weather Center, I'm Chris Earl Phillips. For this afternoon, sunny and a high near 101. Tonight, mostly clear, low around 69. Tomorrow, sunny and a high of 98. Tomorrow night, mostly clear, low around 69. Heading into the work week, we started on Monday with sunny skies and a high of 95. Monday night, mostly clear, low around 65. On Tuesday, sunny with a high of 94. Tuesday night, mostly clear, low of 65. On Wednesday, sunny and a high of 95. That's your forecast for this hour from the station that leaves no listener behind. NBC News Radio, AM 1050 KCAA.
This is the KCAA Community Calendar. Come join the community of Redlands for the Redlands Constitution Day Celebration 2013. It's the third annual celebration of the signing of the U.S. Constitution, and immerse yourself in the spirit of America. Saturday, September 14th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is a family and child-friendly event. Admission is free with a food truck, live music and performances, activities and entertainment all day long. This event is non-political and it's presented by the 4400 Project, a local nonprofit volunteer organization dedicated to teaching students